Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Conversations from the Center. My name is Brandon Thomas. I am a member of the Gateway Film Center Programming Committee and also a contributor to madwolf.com. I am joined tonight with several Central Ohio film critics, and we are going to be discussing film criticism in 2020 and how the pandemic and subsequent lockdowns have sort of changed how we view film criticism, how we've been reviewing films, and sort of go from there. So the critics I do have with me tonight are George Wolfe, Paul Markoff, and Hope Madden. Thank you all for being with me here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, wow. Well, let's go ahead and dive into it. I sort of wanted to start off a little more broadly with the topic and just hit each one of you and see how, you know, this subsequent year has sort of impacted how you have been reviewing films. What has been the biggest challenge for you so far? And George, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on that one.
I think the biggest challenge has been adjusting the time schedule. I mean, when the lockdown first hit now, it's been about a year ago, hard to believe, we really thought, well, we're going to have some time on our hands. And it was that way for maybe a few weeks. And then, boy, they are coming fast and furious. And there just seem to be so many more movies now. We are getting a few in the theaters, but most of them you can access on all sorts of different platforms. And sometimes it's just a matter of fitting them all in. So it's sort of a nice problem to have. I guess more movies is good, more exposure, but the time management, I think, has been one that that I didn't expect when this all went down.
Right. And Paul, how about you?
I find trying to filter out what we should review on our podcast to be the most difficult. Typically, we would review theatrical releases, since for the most part of 2020, for the first few months, there were essentially no theatrical releases. Then they started to spill out. We started to look into streaming options. And when we started to look into streaming options, there's a lot of possibilities. And sometimes it was hard to differentiate which ones were notable that our audience would take note of, and which ones were just kind of, and I shouldn't use white noise, but there's a lot of options out there. So it was tough to figure out which ones to pick.
Sure. Nope.
I mean, the other big change, of course, is that we're watching everything at home. And I know I'm hardly the only person who misses getting to see some of the really beautiful films on a big screen. Not everything really requires it. And for the most part, I'm adjusting well to never leaving my house and watching stuff whenever at my leisure, but I do miss, there are some films that I watch at home and think, I wish I could see it on a big screen. I wish I could see it with other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that there are these movies that have gotten released in the last 6 to 9 months that really scream for that big screen experience. And there have been a few that have tested the waters, most notably Tenet. But what I'm thinking of is something like Wonder Woman 1984. And that went simultaneously to the few theaters that were open, but also HBO Max was their big rollout with it. And the reaction to Wonder Woman 1984 seemed to be very different than what you normally get with most big blockbusters, and that could be for many reasons. And for whoever wants to jump in and sort of talk about that, do you think that this release scenario is what did that, or do you think there were other factors at play?
I think there were other factors at play, but I don't think the release helped it, because it didn't get to open to crowds full of people who couldn't wait to see it, kids who were just, super giddy about it. To me, it has never really mattered when I have gone to see these screenings of the great big either DC or MCU films, whether they turn out to be bad or good. In that moment with that crowd, people are so happy. And so the film benefits from at least an opening like that of just good vibes. And instead it went directly to anybody who felt like watching it because they had it available in front of them. And so you got as much snark as you could possibly get right off the bat. And I also feel like the style that Patty Jenkins used It was big, you know, it was kind of gaudy. I think it fit, but I think it would have fit better on a big screen.
Right, right. Well, Paul, you know, oh, I'm sorry, Paul, go right ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to piggyback on that I think, and we're talking about a big blockbuster action film. The reason that I would give a slight pass for Wonder Woman is because of the 3 big action scenes. And I can't imagine that they wouldn't translate better on a big screen, and that maybe the reception to the movie as a whole wouldn't have been better if everyone was experiencing these 3 big action scenes. Particularly the one at the beginning, I think, is the best part of the entire film. And maybe I don't know if it necessarily falls flat. I still think it works, but I can't imagine how successful it would have been if I was watching it on the big screen and everyone else was as well.
Right. Yeah, I think that could have made a difference in the negative, not just the negative reaction, the intensity of the negative reaction to this. I mean, everybody's not going to like a movie. I actually like this one better than the first one, but it's fine if you didn't like it. But the intensity of some of the criticism really, really surprised me. I thought, wow, did we watch the same movie? And I think maybe this could have even subconsciously played into that people just, without even thinking about it, are just kind of, it's here on the big screen. It just, like Hope said, you're not in a group setting. You're not hooping and hollering with all these other people. And it just wasn't as enjoyable of an experience for a lot of people.
Right, right. I sort of want to touch on something that Paul said, in that he mentioned that a lot of the films that he tends to review or are really focused on are theatrical releases. Do you think that with the way the world is right now, that a lot of smaller films or maybe underseen films are getting, you know, not maybe exposure, but are getting pushed by studios or distributors that maybe wouldn't have before?
Yes, I don't think there's any question about that, because there are theaters that are still open and they have screens to fill and nothing to fill them with. So movies that have hung around for a couple of years that, you know, were maybe had too many stars in them to go to VOD, but at the same time, they were never actually going to get released because they're mediocre. They're finding screens now. And it's a funny thing, because I don't really think that that's doing those movies any particular service, because no one cares until it's available to stream, because no one is going to the theaters. So if your critics, you know, if the reviews are coming out timed with your theatrical release and your marketing is timed with your theatrical release, by the time you're available on streaming services, which is when people are watching right now, they've forgotten that you exist. And that's a big issue because of just the amazing volume of content to sort through online right now.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Just the way that people are interacting with movies, not only, you know, people that are reviewing them like us, but even, you know, just the culture at large. And to sort of segue into something maybe a little bit more philosophical, for the three of you here, have you found yourself connecting with the movies that you're reviewing any differently now, since, you know, everything is being reviewed from home? I know that, you know, in the world that we live in now, even before the pandemic and the shutdowns, you know, digital links, you know, screeners, the like, were a big thing. And so we were used to screening a lot at home, but now that that's the way that we're primarily screening movies, has your just line of thinking about interaction changed at all?
Well, I know, at least in a couple of cases, it's changed very drastically. Case in point, there was a movie called Faith-Based here last year. The filmmakers, it's a comedy, and they reached out to us directly. It didn't even have, at the time, it didn't even have a distributor. And they wanted just some reviews to get it going. And so we gave it a look and really liked it, laughed a lot, and gave it a very positive review. And they got back to it and they loved it. Thanks for our help and everything, and shared it. And we did. And then lo and behold, not too long ago, they got distributing, and it made us feel like, you know, a small part of that. And if something can break through, and you've got people trying to find a way with all the content out there to break through, and they took a chance and reached out to us, and other people have too. And we don't always have the time, but you find something like that and you just feel a little more personally engaged in it, I guess. So that's not going to happen every time, but it happens here and there, and it really gave us a good feeling.
Right. Paul, what about you on that?
Well, I mentioned before that sometimes it's hard to filter out what movies we should be doing for our podcast, since there's so many now. That's the counter to that. That's the plus, that there are so many options now, that you should really be able, if you do. And I think there's a little bit of research, a little bit of homework that everybody's going to have to do before they dig into a movie, because there's so many options. But variety is the spice of life, and that's probably the best thing that's come out of cinema, is that there's more access to more film.
I feel like that actually, in a strange way, I think that film critics are more valuable than they were. I've never had sort of the super lofty idea that my job is to shed a lot of light onto, like the philosophical underpinnings of a film. I feel like I'm here to help people decide, do I want to see it at all? Do I want to pay full price to see it? Do I want to wait till it's available online? And right now, I feel like people, they don't even know what's available. And even if they did, they have so little opportunity to figure out what's worth seeing. And so I have felt like, what we do is more useful to people. First of all, pointing out films that they probably don't even know are out. And then second of all, directing them to movies that are really worth their time, in a sea of options that's much more vast than it was a year ago.
Yeah, because I don't know if you guys all remember, just a few months ago, John Cleese kind of fell into some criticism because of his comments about film critics, and shouldn't they be qualified in some way before someone's allowed to be a film critic? And it made me think, in reality, everyone, if you go see a movie and you come out of the theater and you comment to somebody, you're a film critic. And it just, what matters is, and differentiation is, the reach and the exposure. And you only get that by earning it, just like a movie does with an audience. If you can be a film critic, and anyone can take it online now. And if you're not of value, like Hope says, if you're not of value to somebody, then you're not going to get much exposure, and you're not going to get much reach, and if you don't put any work into it. So I think it has given the film critics a chance to earn that, a chance to say, hey, maybe I can help you out here, if you give us an ear, and then build an audience. So I think that all dovetails into one another.
Right. Something that I've noticed, and this has been a problem, I think, in the last couple of years, and just really sort of exploded this year, is just the sheer amount of, and I hate to use this word, but I'm going to use it, content that is out there that sort of just gets dropped on a lot of these platforms with little to no fanfare. And it's just like, okay, find it. And I mean, as longtime critics, and all three of you have been doing this for quite some time, do you now see this shift not only to, when something comes across your screen that is just like, wow, just really blew your mind, and especially if it's a streaming exclusive, do you feel any type of like real need of like, this is one I really want to push. I really want, to get the word out about this movie because it was just so good. And it made me, just really gave me an emotional response. What do you all three think about something like that?
Yeah, I know I do. I mean, early on, I saw a movie called The Vast of Night before Hope did, and she probably got tired of me talking about it because I was afraid it was going to fall through the cracks, and I loved it. So yeah, I think we picked things and championed them. Yeah.
Well, I know, Brandon, this week you reviewed a movie called #Like that you loved, that certainly wouldn't have had a theatrical release. I mean, it was a straight to VOD no matter what. And one of the things that I think the environment today gives us is the chance to, people are as likely to watch that movie online as they are to watch the new Denzel Washington movie online, as they are to watch anything else online, because really, unless you're paying very close attention to new releases, it's hard to know what's coming out, who's in what, when it's releasing, where you can find it. So I feel like it's really leveled the playing field, and it makes it easier, I think, to champion a movie like #Like, because nobody's heard of anything. You know what I mean? It's just as unheard of as anything else that's out this week. And people aren't going, oh, it's straight to VOD, because everything is. So I think that the environment, weird as it sounds, makes it easier to do that, to direct people to movies that they a year ago wouldn't have even given the time of day.
Right. That's interesting. Going forward with, this is obviously there's going to be a seismic change to to distribution, to the way, continue the way that movies are distributed to people. Theaters are going to open back up. We're still going to get the Marvel, we're still going to get the DC, Star Wars, the like animated films in theaters, these big movies. Do you think that the audience is still going to, to want that big sort of roller coaster type experience, in a theater after this is over? Do you think that there's this missing component to culture right now?
I think we're always going to have big screen experiences that people are going to want to go to. I've made comparisons before. People have been drinking alcohol for years. They've been drinking it from their homes. We eat at our homes. We still like to go out to a bar and have a drink. We still like to go out to a restaurant and meet with our friends. There's still this communal experience that is empowering and, really, I think livens up everything that we do. I think the movies are no better example than that. And I also think, again, as you mentioned with Wonder Woman 1984 and with Tenet, that there are movies that demand to be seen on a big screen. And I think that desire is always going to be there.
Yeah, what's going on now reminds me of two things. It reminds me of how Napster upended the recording industry. It changed it forever. And it was tough at first. They tried to sue everybody that downloaded a song. That's not going to work. So the industry had to adjust, and they have. It also reminds me of an interview, and I forget what it was, maybe Rolling Stone, maybe 10 years or so ago, with Spielberg and Scorsese and maybe one other filmmaker, I forget who. And they predicted that in the future, movies were going to be like rock concerts, big events, $50 tickets, for just, and I'm not saying we're there yet, but every time it's inching closer and closer to that. So there's going to be a demand, yes, but it's going to change.
Hope, what about you?
Yeah, I think, I know my Twitter feed doesn't look like everybody else's. It's a lot of movie nerds in my Twitter feed, but man, the people are eager to get back out to the theater. They're eager to see movies in the theater and to have that community experience, to watch it where, your laundry isn't going off and your kids aren't running around and there's not something else to draw your attention, where you can just sit and focus and pick up the energy of everybody else who's enjoying the same movie or hating the same movie, laughing at the same movies, being frightened by the same movies. I do think that people miss that and will return. I don't know if they'll return the same numbers. And I know that the industry was not as strong as it might have been even as we came into this. So I feel like that there's a lot that the industry as a whole is going to have to do to embrace this change, because as George says, it's not like there's any going back. This is, people we're going to be continuing to watch movies at home even more than we did before the pandemic. But one of the things that I think has come out of this is people, it's funny, they seem less willing to watch movies than TV. I think that movies have gotten in a big way lost during the pandemic. It's just this sort of lost time for them, because people seem to want shows that they can either just abandon 90 minutes in, half an hour in, or they can just commit to for days and days and days on end. And I think that the concept of time is different now. You either have like a whole night ahead of you and nothing to do, and what am I going to do? I'm going to sit here and binge the show for 4.5 hours. Or you're antsy and you can't commit to the movie. So movies have not fared well, even in the home environment. People haven't taken to them in the way that they have shows. Shows are so much more popular than they ever were before. So I find that just a fascinating, twist that I don't think any of us predicted.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are taking your traditional movies for granted, and there's been just a few that have sort of risen to the top in those releases. I think of something like The Wolf of Snow Hollow. That's a movie that seems like it's stayed in the conversation, for longer than you would normally expect these days. Or even something like another horror film like His House. That's something that really felt like it stayed in the conversation. Not to the degree of a Marvel movie or Star Wars or Pixar or whatnot, but it felt like that was one that people were talking about. It didn't get lost immediately, in the deluge of everything else. And I wonder too, critics, we do this because we love movies. It's not like, oh, well, I'm going to go become a critic and, da, 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 da. We do this because we love movies, and you're continually eating that love of cinema. And I feel like for all of us, we're pretty lucky here in Columbus. We have a great movie environment, whether it be Gateway or the Wexner Center for the Arts, the Drexel studio in Grandview. I mean, and then there are several chain movie theaters out there for the big multiplexes. I feel like, we're in a pretty lucky spot. And those, especially those independent theaters, do a lot to stoke the fires of passion. Going forward, after this is over, I feel like for some of us, we can see that light at the end of the tunnel, even if it's just a speck, but we can see it. How do you think that film criticism is going to change? I mean, again, with everything else, I can't see that just reverting back to the way that it was. I mean, even just when it comes to screenings on how you're getting the movies, what are your opinions on how you feel like it could continue to change going forward? George?
Well, I think if things like giving us screening links instead of holding screenings, if that's more cost effective, especially in the early going to studios, that's what they'll continue to do. Now, word of mouth screenings, of course, they love those because people come out and do the word of mouth. But I expect more of the links in our inbox that to continue. But I still think for some movies that the in-person screenings will be good as well, and maybe even for the family movies, because that's the thing I keep going back to when this is all over. Think about the cost for the families. Even a premium on Disney Plus now, what is that, $20? That's still coming out way better for a family of four. If their kids want to see Frozen 6 or whatever it is, that's one business model now that is shown. I know we have neighbors across the street that is coming out much better money-wise for them, and a lot of people are going to remember that. So there's a lot of things that have to be adjusted once we are out of this. But yeah, I think there'll be a mix of both. I mean, they'll still go back to the big screenings, but I expect to have some at home as well.
Paul, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with George. I think it'll be scaled back quite significantly on some of your more moderate budgeted films. I think the big ones, as we mentioned before, the Wonder Woman 1984, Tenet, anything probably coming out from Pixar, Marvel, any of these big studio releases. I still think you're going to, especially if you want a good review from a critic and you want it to be maximized for its potential and its viewing experience, you want to put your best foot forward. And so I expect to see all the big major releases to be still done, in the movie theater, but I expect more digital screeners as well.
In terms of coverage, which is to say what we cover every week, I'm conflicted. When we go back to the paradigm of theatrical releases, I don't know exactly how to backtrack so that we're not still covering movies that are released straight to streaming, not just because it's now how people are even more used to seeing things, not just because I think that even more people are going to be seeing things, just because like in good conscience, I don't want to let those are films that don't have marketing budgets. And if you don't have a marketing budget, reviews are your marketing, right? Yeah. And, I value independent filmmaking, and I feel for the little guy who made a movie and then nothing's going to happen. And at the same time, there's a limited number of hours in the day, and twice as many movies means twice as many mediocre movies. It means twice as many bad movies. It means, it's a big investment of time. I hate to sound like a whiny baby because, of course, this is the greatest job there is. There is no better job than this. We just watch movies. But there is a limited number of hours in the day. And so I'm a little torn on, as Paul was saying earlier, sifting through the options and moving forward, deciding what we're going to cover.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. There's one last thing I really wanted to touch on before we wrap up. And, we're heading into February, which is traditionally, really getting into award season, especially like the Oscars. We would have already been past the Golden Globes. this year, pretty much across the board, every film festival has been virtual or just canceled, period. And, a lot of films generate buzz not only for award season, but box office, no matter where it's at, through these film festivals. How do you think that is going to alter this upcoming award season?
I think the first number one best thing is that almost everybody will have access to almost everything that's nominated. And that never happens. So often the nominations come out, especially like foreign language nominations, and you have to wait. You have to wait until it's over. There could be this big gap before you even have the opportunity to see the films. And, by the time the Oscars roll around this year, every single one of those movies will be streaming. You won't even have to go buy a ticket. You can just dial it up on your screen. And financially, that's not going to help that many people. But in terms of an audience, more people are going to see First Cow. More people are going to see, Promising Young Woman, and I like that aspect of it anyway, that all of these movies, when COFCA, when our Film Critic Circle put out our top 10, our 10 best films of the year, 6 of those were already streaming, which is unheard of. That never happens. So it's like, here are 6 movies you can watch right now. And, I find that exciting.
I would just leapfrog on what she said. Everybody might not have the time. Another thing that Hope alluded to earlier is, or having the money, is also having the time. And now that the Oscars have been backed up, I think the first or second week in April is when they're supposed to. Now we have 2 months to see all of these films in preparation to see, what's going to win the big award.
Yeah, it's so important and so nice that they all are available right now, because I remember a couple of years ago when we published our, top 10 or top 20, one of the first comments, somebody just snarkily put down, oh, great, 18 movies I've never seen or never heard of, and 2 Disney movies. And so right away you can say, okay, but here they are. You can watch them right now. And that is really great, especially for the ones that open early, just to be eligible for Oscars, and they weren't going to get maybe to Columbus or these other markets till well into February. No, boom, they're out there now. That really is nice this year. Really is.
Fantastic. Well, I want to put all 3 of you on the spot real quick. I thought this would, since we were talking about film criticism in the year 2020, I want to hit each one of you. And if you can think of it, just right off the top of your head, what was your favorite movie of the year so far? We'll start with you, George.
Wow. Well, when we did ours together, First Cow was our favorite. So I would say that was, but this is one where I didn't really have a clear winner. There could have been 5 or 6. Soul could have easily been my number one. Possessor, I have probably had 4 or 5 that I could have easily said, yeah, that was my best, which doesn't really happen for me. Most years I have a clear winner.
Right.
So I guess if you put me on the spot, I'll say Soul.
Paul, how about you?
As confusing and some people would argue messy as it is, I love the glorious ambition and wildness of Tenet. And I really regret not being able to see that one on the big screen. I'm hoping, once I feel comfortable enough, and, I don't know that it'll be up for Best Picture, but I'm hoping for a chance to get in the theater and see that one.
Hope?
Yeah, First Cow was my favorite movie of last year, and I was so thrilled to get a chance to champion that toward the end of the year. But Promising Young Woman is one that's out right now and people should go see.
Well, I'll just throw out mine. The one that keeps floating to the surface for me, and it's a bit older, and last year it feels like 5 years ago, was The Invisible Man. I really, and I don't know if I've ever been that anxious in a movie in my life. The theater could have been on fire and I would have been less anxious. In that moment. So, Invisible Man. And my wife is not affected by horror movies that often. She sees it as a badge of honor. That movie freaked her out so much. And I was like, yes, fine. It happened. It has happened. So I hang that over her head nicely there. So, thank you very much, all 3 of you, for joining me tonight. I want to go ahead and start with you, George. Let everyone know where we can find you on social media with your reviews.
Yeah, our main website is madwolf.com. That's Mad with 2 Ds. And then on Twitter, it's @MadWolf, and Facebook and Instagram, it's MadWolf Columbus.
Paul, how about you?
I co-host and co-produce Filmbound. It can be found at filmboundpod.com online, and you can also download it on various streaming services and apps.
All right. And Hope, you are found in the same spot that the Georges. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I am found in those same spots. We have a podcast as well called The Screening Room, where every Friday we talk about all of the movies, which anymore is a lot for that week, and you can find it wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, great. Well, thank you all three again. I just want to let everyone out there know that starting this weekend, the Gateway has been chosen to be a satellite location for the Sundance Film Festival, which means you can go to gatewayfilmcenter.org. That's gatewayfilmcenter.org, and you can purchase tickets, see what's screening, see what's out there. Some great independent cinema, in Columbus and at the Gateway Film Center. You can also check out their virtual screening room. There's always, a new rotation of films there that you can watch from the comfort of your home, which we have been talking about for the last 20 plus minutes. Thanks again, everyone. It's been a great talk.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.